What we're going to do in this lesson is to look at the offset filter function within Adobe Photoshop and how it relates to our images and textile surface design. First of all, we're going to open one of our motifs and we're going to note that the image size. So we're going to find the image size by going under the image menu in Adobe Photoshop and going down to image size and noting the pixel dimensions. In this case, my width on my pixel dimensions is 333 and my height is 664. What I ultimately want to do is to have my width and my height numbers be even numbers, all right? Not even with themselves necessarily, but even in terms of the ending number being an even number, so that I can divide the width and the height in half. Okay, I can't divide a half of a pixel, so I have to make this width here either 332 or 334. In this case, I'm going to make it 332, and if I just change it by 1 pixel, it's really not going to affect my design all that much. If you're changing it by more than 1 or 2 pixels, you will notice a difference in the size, maybe the proportion of it, and so on. So you might have to use the constrain proportions box here. It might stretch your design a little bit, but it's all depending upon what kind of look you want. What's important here is when we're resampling our image that we're using the nearest neighbor option here to preserve the hard edges. That way, with our thresholded image here, it's going to remain completely black and white and there won't be any anti-aliasing going on. Okay, so I just changed that, and what we want to do is write down our pixel dimensions here. So with my width at 332 and my height at 664, I'm going to write that down and note it. 332 on the width and 664 on the height. I wrote that down and I'm going to say OK. Now what I want to do is go under my filter menu, go down where it says Other and Offset. And what we want to do here is we want to see what this looks like on a 0, 0. When it's horizontally and vertically both 0, our image is exactly as it was. However, we want to have this wraparound function checked, and we're going to split our horizontal and our vertical pixels in half. So what was a 332 now is 166, is half of 132, and you can see what it does here. It split my image completely in half. Okay, so what we're doing here is that we're going to be able to fill in the negative space. The negative space here is actually part of your design, so it has to be taken into consideration when you're creating an overall textile design. Okay, our vertical here, my vertical was 664, so half of 664 is going to give me also 332. So you see when I do that, what it does is it pushes the 4 corners of the image out to the 4 corners of the canvas. All right, so it splits that image, and I have the space in the center here that I can add to create a more pleasing design layout. I'm just going to say OK to this first, and I'm going to drag over a horizontal and a vertical guide. So I'm going to drag over a vertical guide and line it up completely in the center of my image, and I can also bring down a horizontal guide so that if I want to put another motif directly in the center of this object here, I could. In this case, I'm going to use one of my selection tools. I'm going to use my rectangular marquee, and I think I want to have like a little stripe down the center here, so I'm going to just click and drag with that rectangular marquee. There we go. My mouse is sticking just a little bit, so I'm clicking and dragging on that rectangular marquee, and I'm going to fill that in with my foreground color, which this case it's black. So I'm going to go to Edit, Fill, and I'm going to fill that in, not with a pattern, but I'm going to fill it in with either black or my foreground color. In my case it's black. And I want 100% opacity and say OK. All right. Now, if I wanted to add another motif, maybe I could either use my elliptical marquee if I wanted to make a dot in the center, or I could use my pencil tool here and either draw something, or maybe I just want to create a big dot. So I'm going to create, let's say I want to make a big dot. I'm going to make that 80 pixels wide, and I'm going to line up that dot here. First I have to deselect my stripe, and I'm going to line up that dot completely in the center there. You can see that a little crosshair. I'm going to line it up with the crosshair on my guides, and I'm just going to make a dot in the center of my design. Okay. Next step is I'm going to select all. So I'm going to go to Select menu, All, or Control A, or Command A on the Mac, and I'm going to I can copy this, or I can define pattern. So Edit, Define Pattern. It's now going to be called my diamond dot. And I'm going to say OK. Next, I want to create a new file, 8 by 10 inches, not pixels. We want it to be inches, 8 by 10. Our resolution is at 300 dpi. Our background contents can either be white, or you could make it transparent if you like. I'm going to leave mine as white, and I'm going to say OK. Next, what I'm going to do is go to Edit, Fill, and I'm going to fill that in with my newly formed pattern. And it's always the last pattern in your pattern library there, and you're going to say OK. And you can see that I have this new design here. And what happened is, instead of just having these repeating all over, now I've added something into the center here. So it's given the design a little bit more interest, you know, when you add something into the middle there. All right. And what I can do here is I'm going to duplicate this file. And just to show you one more thing in this lesson, I'm going to go under my image menu and duplicate. All right. I'm going to make a copy of this. Okay, so now I have two of them. All right, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to select one of them here, and I'm going also under my image menu. I'm going to where it says Adjustments, and I'm going to invert. So I'm going to see what this looks like with the black ground instead of the white ground. So later on I can decide whether I want to choose the black ground for my collection or the white ground. And now I have two choices. I want to save my file. And I'm just going to use an underscore and use black for that one. And I'm saving this in a TIFF format. I don't want any compression. I want to save it in IBM PC byte order and say OK. I can also save the white version. File, Save As, and I can give it the same name. And that's the white. Again, I'm saving it in TIFF format, and I'm saving it into my folder. No compression, IBM PC byte order. So there you have. You have a new design using the offset filter function in Adobe Photoshop.